Yo, what's good? What's up?
Chilling, man. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, man. Happy holiday weekend to everyone out there.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying is happy holiday weekend. I don't know, like I feel like happy Thanksgiving doesn't necessarily equate these days. Like
Yep.
some people celebrate, some people don't partake in what the holiday stands for, but you just go with a general happy holidays, you know.
Yeah, no, around here, or at least in my house, we say Happy Turkey Day or Happy Family Day.
Like that. Happy Turkey Day. How was Turkey Day in the household?
It was good. I mean, it was a little bit different than it felt a little bit different than other Thanksgiving due to the fact we've been eating our meals together as a family since the beginning of the pandemic. And I feel like there hasn't really been a situation, a time where we've all just been like out and about. Like Thanksgiving is
Yeah.
usually the time where everyone centers back at home, but since we've been essentially centered for the majority of the year, it honestly felt like a regular meal with some specialties,
Yeah, it
with
was just
holiday
the
specialties.
just the cuisine was different. I feel
Exactly. I mean, it was similar, but then you got your sweet potato pie and all the extra holiday treats. How about you? How was it on your end?
It was good, man. Pretty low key. Didn't really do anything. I mean, I used to growing up, like we would do Thanksgiving. I grew up in Massachusetts. We would go to New York, which was like the big tradition each year. Visit my aunt and uncle there. But then maybe like 7 years ago, they stopped doing that because they moved out of the country. So
They stopped hosting it.
yeah, they moved out of the country. So like it was quiet. we
Oh
weren't
yeah,
all we weren't
yeah.
all pulling up to Abu Dhabi for Thanksgiving. It would have been the wave, but
That'll be a good move in the future. So you may
yeah.
have to start. You may have to start hosting it.
Well, I mean, so basically, the last few years, last I think 4 years now, what we had been doing is our family would just go on vacation, which I love Turkey Day, but at the same time, it was nice, like we all would have off work and whatnot, so we would just like hit up different countries. Obviously, that was on hold this year, so this year it was pretty low key, man. Just sort of hung out. Yeah, didn't really do much, but enjoyed the time off work and whatnot.
That's always good. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm very grateful that people in my family that we've remained healthy. You know what I'm saying, throughout this. So shout out to everyone who's you know dealing with possibly with that empty seat at the table. I know that can be definitely difficult, but peace and blessings to that.
Definitely. Give me like 2 seconds. I realize I gotta drop in today's topic list, and I gotta copy and
All
paste
good.
it.
It's all good. It's all good. Now it's loading, so I don't know if you can hear me.
I'm
Okay, it's back.
I'm back. Yeah, I don't know what that's gonna look like for our viewers, but
It's all good. It's all good. I think during the introduction, I think did you mention any of the topics?
I have not mentioned the topics yet, but I just pinned them right there, so we can get started. Yeah, today's topics we got mixtapes and Grammys. We got Chappelle versus Viacom. And then, as usual, we have our Sunday shoutouts. So I know the first topic on the list I know is mixtapes and Grammys, which was what you've been thinking about this week.
Something I want to chop it up. Yeah, so Lil Wayne, he dropped No Ceilings on Friday, No Ceilings 3, and huge Weezy fan, always been one, ever will be one. And I think I always discuss Weezy in the light where he's like one of the first artists I started listening to. It was Bow Wow, 50, and Wayne.
I've heard you say this, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So getting mixtape Weezy right now, especially around the holiday season, it allowed just that good sense of nostalgia. Like I went in it, he released it on Dat Piff too. So it was actually a mixtape, not one of the playlist or mixtapes that some artists do where they just post it on these other streaming services. So you were only able to find it there, and then like YouTube and stuff at first. But when I first logged on, or when I went to that Piff, the site was down. And I haven't experienced something like that in a minute. You know what I mean? To go out,
Yeah, yeah.
go on and search for that new project. So even having that feeling for times to refresh, looking online for other ways to go download it really took me back, and I definitely appreciated that.
How do you? I mean, I haven't heard the project yet, but how do you feel about I saw a comment on social media which I chuckled at, which was basically like the last thing that Weezy did before dropping this was endorsing Trump right before the election, and then that obviously didn't turn out well, and also wasn't a good look. And I certainly am not necessarily looking for Lil Wayne to be a political revolutionary leader, but I did find it funny where people were like, he's just trying to get back in good books because that attempt, that play didn't work. He's like, he called Drake just to make sure that he was good again.
Yeah,
So
no.
I thought that was an interesting, like, the timing of that. I mean, again, that didn't play an influence into why I haven't heard it. I just haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. And I definitely, like I said, like, I know Lil Wayne's, opinions on things aren't necessarily going to match up with my own in certain cases. But I did find that funny where people were like, he was just throwing anything out to be like, nah, forget what I did last week. We got a new project, mixtape one.
Yeah, I don't even think he was thinking about it, or at least I wasn't for sure. I mean, I always go back to what Malcolm X was saying about how, especially in my community, people are looking towards athletes and entertainers and stuff as the leaders, and the fact that wherever they stand politically is the way we should all move. And I mean, we've brought this conversation up before, separating the artist and the art. You know what I mean? And I think that this is a time where that implies. And like, if that's who he endorses, like, there's people out there that I talk to on a day-to-day basis who will never let me know who they endorse, or if they endorse everyone else besides Trump, it's like I don't know the way that they vote. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, in the end of the day, I don't bring his endorsements in this realm of his music. It's not gonna stop me from listening to Wayne, to be honest. And yeah, the only thing I saw as it pertains to that endorsement was really that picture. You know what I mean? I didn't see him like campaigning for him, wearing all the merch throughout the past 4 years. So just whatever. And I mean, I never listened to Lil Pump anyway, so that's not going to be a thing where
I mean, I'm a Kanye fan, so like, my ship has sailed. Like, clearly I'm an artist kind of do. I mean, so I didn't vote for Kanye, in case anyone's wondering. No, I said that without pop out. I didn't vote for Kanye this time. We'll see how 2024 goes. But I didn't vote for Kanye in 2020. I sat there. I was like, nah, that's not what the country needs.
But even if you did, that's just what it is. You know what I mean? We all
yeah, for sure. We definitely have friends and people in the youth free community. I know for a fact who voted for it. It is what it is, man. People got different opinions. That's the beauty, is that we can all exercise our right and express those opinions. Anyway, we got super off topic, but bring it back to
bring it back. No, it was nice. I like when Wayne just started snapping on beats and stuff. He had a song with Drake on it, which was really good. So it's like two goats on one tape. Two of my favorite artists. So it's like no complaints. It was a good way to kick off the holiday weekend. And yeah, I just have some things just on repeat. It was just nice to just hear Wayne in that fashion again, just snapping on not only some of his beats that he had in the tug, but it was just classic. You know what I mean? And also too, the fact that I always find it amazing where artists can release just free music. You and I both know how difficult it is to write a song, write a hook, write a verse. So it's like when you're just constantly just putting out music and just have a catalog as expansive as Wayne, like, it's just goat shit, honestly.
I mean, yeah, it's second nature to him. But it also makes sense because he was ingrained in it, from a very young age. Like, he's in his prime. And I remember we talked about on Essay's episode that, like, we compare music to athletes, or musicians to athletes a lot. But with athletes, it's like, because it is your body, like, at a certain time, like, you're past your prime. But as an artist, there's no reason that you can't just keep getting better and better and better at your art and at your craft. So, that's certainly the case in Lil Wayne. Though it doesn't surprise me that he's still able to hop on different beats and just like flip it. And I mean, Wayne in particular, I love when he hops on songs and takes the flow from the original, or like the rhyme scheme from the original, and then just like builds off it and goes in his own direction. He's super talented at that. So yeah, shouts out to Wayne.
Yeah, also too, since you brought up Essie's episode, I remember she was saying how she wants to see Young Thug one day when he's 60 years old performing, and like have hopefully like the artists, their longevity could reach those heights. He had Thug on the song too, and we just think about, I guess, from media perception, just Thug's relationship over time after, leading up when Thug dropped Part 6. just sort of understanding the time and space that they're at. You know, it's like last week you have Gucci and Jeezy.
Well, it's also the interesting thing about that is I think we also have to remember as consumers, we don't know when this, like that song with Lil Wayne and Drake, that song could be years old. And the reason I mention it is because I read that the Thug song, apparently Thug's verse is from like 2015 or 2016. Like, it's an old song, but we're just hearing it now, you know? So it's always interesting too that what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, like, there's artists who have been very public about the fact that they have like 7, 8 projects ready to go, but they're just not dropping them, you know? So even with this Lil Wayne project, I mean, taking it back a step where if it was like, okay, remove Lil Wayne's actual context from this, but just like in general, if an artist ever was like in bad publicity and like needed some good publicity, most of them have enough music that they could just drop a project and be like, okay, that's like Chase narrative,
right?
Yeah, because we only hear such a small fraction of what what artists are creating. For the most part, I feel like there's definitely some artists who just kind of release everything that they make. And Lil Wayne certainly has a very high volume, but I think even in his case, like we saw with the Carter 5, how long it went and like how many different stages it went through, that clearly he still has old songs that we just haven't heard or won't hear, you know?
That's a fact. Yeah, and on that note too, when we're discussing just like just ways in which artists drop music instead of bringing back this hip culture, what was also interesting too was looking at, and it happens every single, like it's like the Oscars and what happens around like Emmy time too, like Grammys just have artists who throughout the whole year they just say, oh, I don't care about this award. I mean, we saw even toilet and Pete on it, you know. We have artists like Drake that are drinking out of these trophies, and it's just like people who weren't nominated. It's just that constant, that, what is it called? It's like that recycled conversation that happens every year, no matter what.
Yo, the joke is on us, bro. The joke is entirely like and I mean, I understand why we're talking about this topic.
The bag may be different though. Like if you do have Grammy nominated in front of you, that probably does give you different opportunities. You know what I mean, in this space. But it's just like the valid.
I'm saying from a consumer perspective, this happens every single year where people get upset over, and all the Grammys. Literally from the start, it's not even like they changed. Like the Will Smith got the first rap Grammy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they've been gatekeeping, and they've been gatekeeping incorrectly since their inception. That's what the Grammys are. So for me, the fact that this continues to be a conversation after the egregious things that they've done, I'm just like, how many times are we gonna talk about this and like make?
How many times do you need to learn the lesson?
Because they only have that power because of the fact that we talk about There's nothing that makes the Grammys like important besides the fact that people talk about the Grammys and hold them in the space where they think it's important. So that's why it's like the more we continue to perpetuate it year after year. And I was thinking earlier too. I mean, this is half joking. But to me, the Grammy conversation is like Knicks fans who talk themselves into getting the top pick every year. And I'm like, why are y'all doing this? Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. Nothing from the past decade has indicated any progress on this front. And yet you're just blindly expecting it to suddenly match up with what exactly it is that you want. And obviously in music, it's subjective too. So there's that additional thing of like, yeah, why are you getting caught up in these industry politics, you know? But we do, and it still does become a conversation every single year. So for me, it's like, let's just stop. Let's just all collectively stop giving a fuck about the Grammys. Like, who cares?
And the straight like really just cares. Like, we don't even know who's on that committee to vote for it too. So it's like another thing with voting. You don't know where people are casting their votes. You don't know who they are as individuals. And I think for me, with the Grammy conversation, I always just go back to Kendrick Lamar and Macklemore. After that happened, for that album, for Rap Album of the Year, it's just like there's no, they can't correct that justice after that, and that already just told me where exactly that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember as a kid, I was a big Gangstar fan, and I remember Guru died, which if you know hip hop culture, you know like the importance of that, and they didn't have him in the tribute thing. And that was years before. But like, I mean, yeah, again, like even Will Smith winning the first, it's not like they started really like as far as hip hop goes, or as far as like, you know, the music culture of America beyond like like, you know, the typical criticism like Beatles are the greatest artists of all time, like, you know, like moving past that stage of things, they've never really been reflective of what music culture is, you know. And I mean, I don't even know who won last year. That's why it's wild to me we talk about the nominees, because I'm like, how many of y'all even remember who won best rap album last year or best album last year? I certainly don't, because who cares? It doesn't impact my relationship with the music at all. To your point, it might impact, you know, the bag that they're getting. So I can understand from an artist perspective being frustrated by it. But again, like I think from a consumer perspective, it's why do we even buy into this or talk about it, you know?
Exactly. So I'm over that, and I saw Drake. He put something on a story where there's essentially there needs to be our artists need to come together and do something different. You know, like the people's champs kind of thing. That would be pretty nice. But also too, like we even heard them cut off the speech last year when he was snapping and going off about the fact that hey, like you don't need this trophy to validate anything. Like if people are standing in the rain, um, waiting outside for a concert, spending their last bit of money because they worked 40 hours a week or sometimes 60 or 80 to buy a ticket. It's like you already won. So it's like having these other people just give you that sense of validation.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
Knowing
also,
that they're not going to give that, it's like, it's really whatever. It's really whatever.
and I mean, like, it is subjective. Like, that's the thing. It's pretty stupid that we even decide, like, best album or, like, album of the year, like, out of all this music. And, like, just, I think it also just reflects that as a culture, we just push so much things into competition that don't need to be competition. And music is a prime example of that. Like, it isn't, I mean, yes, they can say it's a celebration of music, but at the same time, if you have 5 artists competing for an award and then 4 of them are going home at the end of the night having lost, or some of them, you know, have worked hard and don't even get nominated. Like I know a big thing this year was like The Weeknd apparently like didn't get nominated simply because he chose not to do a performance for them, and like there's like all this weird industry politics and like art, like the like people's feelings are still getting hurt, you know, and like yes, they're famous artists and like whatever, but at the end of the day, their feelings are still getting hurt, and it is sort of just like why do we frame like dope like people, why do we frame people expressing themselves and giving content to the world for people to enjoy and then take that and be like which one of these is better, which, like, you know what I'm saying, like it's weird that we, and I understand like we do that in sports a ton again, like, and that to me at least makes a little bit more sense. I still think it's dumb when people get into like Jordan LeBron debates all day, you know, but at the same time it's like okay, at least that's like definitively you put them on the court, someone is winning, someone is losing, like they're in different eras, so there's still weirdness, but like music is literally subjective. Like there's no objective way to be like this is the best album of the year.
Yeah, even in verses when people try to say oh XYZ one compared to this artist, and it's just like people judge the rounds differently, you know, so it doubles down on your point about it really just being subjective.
And at least with verses, like that is, you know, the artists are in on it and the artists have ownership or ability to sort of shape their own narratives. Whereas the Grammys, it's literally like, yo, who the fuck are you? Like y'all are coming in here out of nowhere and just being like, these are the best albums of the year. And it's like, okay, but like who are you? Who cares what you have to say?
Show yourself, yeah.
Straight up. Man. But yeah.
Especially going back to where sometimes when we even listen to music and how like No Ceilings came out on Friday, people probably already gave their judgment on the mixtape that evening, you know, and it's just like, yo, this just came out. Did you even give it time to process? Like they could be listening to these albums in the same way, one time through, just keep it pushing.
I mean, yeah, and that's also where I think it's important from the perspective of consumers, in the same way where it's like we got to understand that there's a lot of music that we hear and like that we won't hear, and that we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes before we hear something to that same extent. Like there's a lot of time that goes into this stuff, and it is kind of wild that we try to like, or even like music. I mean, if we're gonna get really into, you know, music culture, like even the fact that Pitchfork grades albums out of 10, you know, and does so a week after they drop, and people spend maybe like years or at least months putting together this artist, this body of work. It comes out, and then this publication is gonna be like 4.6 in a week. You know what I'm saying? Like it's wild to me. And I think the creative side of me gets frustrated with it. The consumer side of me somewhat gets it, and like it's fun to be in like who's your top 5, et cetera, et cetera. but it stops being fun at a certain point. And like the Grammys to me is like, this hasn't been fun for years. So like, why are we even talking about this?
No facts. Shit. That note, I'm down to I'm down to change the subject.
Well, I mean, somewhat related, somewhat
What's
related. So somewhat related to creatives having their feelings hurt.
Oh yeah. I think the next topic was what? Chappelle versus Viacom, right? Did you watch?
Yeah.
Did you watch his drop on Instagram?
Yeah. So basically, for those who don't know, Chappelle dropped a 15-minute special on Instagram, on our IGTV, where he basically kind of broke down his career to a certain extent, from being a young artist, a young comedian, to signing his deal with Viacom or with Comedy Central for the Chappelle Show. And yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it was dope. I'm not even gonna try to like sort of hit all the main points, because he's probably one of the best. He is one of the best storytellers live at the moment. So I think if people really want to tune into it, they should watch it and actually hear what he has to say from his perspective. But that being said, one of the biggest takeaways was basically him saying that he signed a contract, when he was, I think it was 29, and an expecting father, and was at a place in his life where he just didn't really understand the business. People are telling him it's this great contract, so he signed a contract for the Chappelle Show, which essentially led to him being exploited. And now recently the Chappelle Show is up on streaming services again, and he's not making any money on that. And essentially he's like, well, to me, one of the biggest takeaways was like, he's basically like, look, it's legal. I'm not saying it's not legal. I'm saying that it's not moral. It's not right. That I can't, that the show is called Chappelle Show, and I'm not making a dime off of it. And the reason I'd make the comment about, it's creatives getting their feelings hurt is like, I've seen that argument thrown around, right, where it's like, man, like Dave Chappelle's making this much money from Netflix, and like it's just a rich people problem.
So he wouldn't already have this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I definitely get that perspective, but for me, it's like just the idea of exploitation, and just like the example that it sets, right? Especially again because of the fact that he is going about it saying like, I'm not saying it's not legal. Like he literally was like, I asked my agent what we could do. My agent said nothing, so I said, fuck my agent. I'm going to the people, because he's like, it's a moral thing, and it's like, don't watch this show if you support me. And I think the moral, like framing things in that way is really important, because just because it's normal, like we know it's normal that contracts people sign, especially in entertainment, are exploitative. People, that can't be a cop-out anymore, because it's like people aren't in a position when they sign these contracts to understand that to the same extent, or haven't been, that they do once they actually are having money taken away from them, or having a livelihood challenged. So yeah, I mean, like once you get to a certain point, it's like, let's stop caring about, well, technically it's right. It's like, no, morally, is this right? Is this the way that you should practice and like treat other people? You know what I'm saying? People, especially people who are offering something to you, or providing creativity to you, or providing value to you, So yeah, it was interesting. And I think, like, I'm sure on both of our ends, as people who do have creative passions, and just in general who are against exploitation, it was like, I'm not going to watch the Chappelle Show on these streaming services. Like, like I'm gonna do what I can to support him being treated fairly,
Yeah, and the wild thing about it too, it's like, and I don't know the working of the deal, but even if he's at this point with Comedy Central, it's like, why doesn't Comedy Central just give them? They could just agree upon a price. Similar to like how he got 50 mil or something from Netflix for his specials. Give him some money for the show, and then like Viacom could just that money back up with their licensing deals. You know what I'm saying? Down the line, it's probably more so about ownership, and it's definitely not that easy. I think that he's also not even able to utilize his name, because they all that contract. He signed away his likeness.
Yeah, which is wild. And I mean, he also touched on. Damn, I lost the thought. I'm gonna get it back in a second. But yeah, I think the main thing is big. He definitely touched on the fact that like he was like, I could start a new show, and I couldn't even call it Chappelle Show because they own my name, which is just, yeah, it's unreal.
And even if it was written in contract years ago, it's kind of just like because society has changed and the way we go about consuming content and distributing content has changed. It's like we can't modify old agreements. You know what I mean? It's like we run into this with the Constitution right now. You know what I'm saying? Where people are just where the Constitution was created at a time in which life in the world was completely different. It's just like as society progresses, these amendments have to happen in order to just to keep not only everyone happy, but just like it's morally right to adjust with the times to make sure everyone is still getting their fair cut of their share, no matter what
Yeah,
happens.
definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's like we talk a lot about this idea of normal, and it's like normal is fucked up. Like normal should be. I actually had a. I'll save this actually. I'll save this thought for my Sunday shoutouts. But yeah, like normal should not be like the status quo is not should be changed. You know, like should be evolving and improving on things as opposed to just being like this is the way it is. And the thought which I was gonna say earlier too is I think the other piece of it, right, is that he talked about how Netflix was streaming or got the rights to stream the Chappelle show. Chappelle went to them and said, this makes me like, please take this down. This makes me feel badly, right? And like they did that, right? And I think that shows two things, right? It shows like the value of treating each other with respect and literally just being like, financially, I could benefit from having this show out there, but because we work together and you're my partner in business, like, and it makes you feel badly, I'm not going to do that. And like, that's sort of the moral thing. But then on top of that too, it's like, also, if you're thinking big picture, you're making more money from having a personal relationship with the creator who created this, as opposed to like thinking short-sighted about this creation, like an old show, like whatever amount I'm sure they would have made from that. If Chappelle walked away, they're going to lose out on more money either way. So it's a situation where morally and also like financially it does line up. But what's cool is that Chappelle again is framing all of this in a moral way, which I think is really important as far as like how we think about business relationships, because we operate in a framework where a lot of times business relationships are like, oh, it's not personal, it's just business. But it's like business impacts the personal, and I think the society we live in, especially after all the craziness we've seen this year, like we need to stop thinking in that mindset state of it's just business, it's not personal, and start being like, how can we do business while still having respect and still like, seeking to improve other people's personal lives,
And I feel like the only people who don't agree with what Chappelle is saying are people who've never created it, turned nothing into something. Like it's so hard to be able to just take whatever is in your mind and put it into a form that can be digested by others and have that also touched in front of the world. It's not a thing whatsoever, whether it's music, movies, written work, even what we're doing and the way we go about constructing you free episodes, where it's just like the amount of time and you have to go through and checks and balances on your end to be able to push this out into the world, and then for someone else who had no parts in this to still have a hand in that way in dictating what I can do with my own creation, it's foul, because then it's like we're also thinking long term too. You know what I mean? So it's like the individuals are the CEO's grandkids or great grandkids will continuously eat off the fact that they have the show's rights. You know what I mean? But what about Chappelle's great grandkids or great grandkids, like watching and view it, but they can't get a piece of what their blood relative created and what came out of his mind,
Well, that's where too I want to draw the line, because again, like I also do understand the perspective of people who are like, Chappelle is a multi-millionaire, like his grandkids are fine, like why should I care about this
IP,
like
man.
his thing when my grandkids aren't fine, I need to build my own generation well. And I think to me that's where again like this, like the way the framework and the moral thing is so important, because to me, if we want to solve all like when we talk about nobody's free until we're all free, to me what that starts with is like a mentality shift of like treating others the way that you want to be treated, you know what I'm saying, which is like super basic when you learn as a kid, but that's really what we have to do. And that's where to me, like even beyond, yes, his kids are already straight, but to me it's like the mentality of someone of this stature for us to think of it in this framework of like that person is not being treated fairly and should be treated fairly. That trickles down, right? If we adopt that mentality in how we interact with everybody, and I think that dot is hard for people to connect sometimes, where they do look at famous people or rich people's problems, and it is like, man, like y'all are complaining about money which I'm never going to see in my lifetime. Okay, I get that, but at the same time, like what they're not really they're not really complaining about that. They're complaining about the fact that they're being mistreated, and we've all been mistreated in our own different ways. So we all should, like, nobody's free until we're all free. To me, does mean to a certain extent that even people in these more privileged positions, if they're being treated unfairly, we should be like, yo, y'all shouldn't be treated this way.
And I know I quoted what X was saying earlier. Now to bring Martin in this, where he was saying injustice anywhere is injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. Was that? I know I'm misquoting it, but that was the idea behind that.
Yeah,
like,
injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you have to be able to call that out, no matter when that's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, the flip side of it too, obviously, is like Chappelle has proven in a lot of ways, and I know that he's had some controversial opinions, though. I think in my opinion, he does a good job of explaining or of showing that those, like, the jokes that he makes are just jokes. But even beyond that piece of things, like, I think he's shown from the beginning that he is one of the more authentic voices, one of the people who does care more about morality and cares about treating people the right way. I mean, he walked away from the show in the first place, when a lot of other people would have just been like, let me just stack this money real quick and like keep it pushing, right? So I think that also plays into it, where like maybe if another comedian who didn't have the same track record as Chappelle in standing up for people or in espousing certain values, if they were in this position, maybe it doesn't hit the same way, right? But I think because Chappelle is more than just a comedian in some ways, I think that's where it sort of resonates a little bit more,
Facts. And I mean, hopefully they do the right thing. I'm going to support him and not watch the show. Even I was so excited when it came on Netflix.
Got torrented, bro.
Group chat. Say it again.
So you just gotta. I mean, he said don't stream it on streaming services. There's other ways to watch it.
I still got the DVDs at home. So hopefully he at least got a cut of that from Netflix release. But yeah, I think this is going to be interesting to see the way he goes about just challenging this exploitative system, because that's all it is. It's just big business exploiting everyone else.
Straight up, man. It's the status quo. It's really the status quo out here, and like I think we're programmed to be in a way where whether you're in a more privileged position and you get caught up in that and don't care about people who are in less privileged positions, or if you're in a less privileged position and you're so caught up in the day-to-day that other people's problems seem trivial. Like, I think when we start framing things in a competitive mindset like that, where it's like, well, I'm going through this, you're only going through that, that's really where we then perpetuate those problems in the long term. I mean, I was on, we talked a little bit previously, I forget if it was last week, but we talked a little bit about Clubhouse. I was in a Clubhouse room, which was essentially, it was really interesting. It was non-Americans, specifically non-American Black folks, and American, like African Americans or American Black folks, in a conversation where the international folks were basically like, Americans are so caught up in the struggles of America, they fail to show solidarity or support for the same struggles that are happening internationally. And then people on the American side were like, look, like we have to deal with what we're dealing with on the day-to-day. Like, how can we worry about what's over there when we're worried about our own communities? But at a certain point, to me, the conversation became like, it's like we can go back and forth about you haven't supported me enough, or about the issues you're facing are only this, but the issues I'm facing are this. But like at the end of the day, that's not helping anybody. Like that's just getting us stuck in the same status quo, as opposed to as opposed to talking about, okay, here we are, you're dealing with your shit, I'm dealing with your shit. How can I support you, and how can you support me, and how can we build together and like think about proactively fixing things, as opposed to just like comparing all the different problems that we have,
And one thing too, I saw this past June, with a lot of the the protests for Black Lives Matter, after George Floyd was killed, you had that solidarity, that global solidarity, which was also very, very nice. Happened to that degree, or at least that's what the algorithm was showing. What I was reading about, which is really, really nice. And if we can just move with that mentality always for injustices, you're right. That's really the only way we can all consistently shift and move into a better place. But it has to be an everyday battle, an everyday fight, and we can't just exclude people from these battles and justices because they may have more than us.
Exactly, man. I mean, you know, I also recognize I'll be standing on my soapbox talking about this sometimes, but at the same time, it's like if we don't keep it at the center of what we're doing, or if we don't keep it at the center of what we're thinking, then like it's going to be one step forward, two steps back. And I feel like we've done that enough, we've seen that enough, that I think we really do need to start keeping this at the forefront of what, you know, like the goal. And I mean, we said this all the way back, I think, on the very first session of You Free, where it's like the goal ultimately is like, how can you be the best you so everyone can be the best them? And like, so many people out here are focused on how can I be the best me. It's like, and that's great to see that has become such a rallying cry for people. But that if it doesn't have the second part of that, of like, how can I be the best me so everyone around me can be the best them, if it doesn't have that piece, it's not helping anybody. Like that's how I feel about it. So.
Mm-hmm. It's not helping the collective, not the entire. No, I completely agree with that. Yeah, and as long as we're providing space, not also be able to even discuss these things, I think that's also very, very important, because we're going to keep this on the top of our mind, and I feel like we do a great job with referring back to prior conversations, just to show that this has just been something, or a consistent thread across the board. You feel me?
Exactly. Damn. On that note, you got any Sunday shout outs for the week?
Sunday shout outs. Honestly, shout outs to all the farm workers. I saw this or a few different
No, you
videos.
said shout outs who?
Shout outs to the farm workers.
Farm workers. Okay, where?
Yeah, there was a few Twitter threads that I was reading about where I think it was United Farm Workers of America. That may be the actual page, but they were saying, "Hey guys, like, what are some of the typical items that you have on your Thanksgiving?" And people are just Brussels sprouts, carrots, potatoes, so on and so forth. And they were just like sharing clips of videos of the farm workers actually like farming vegetables, and just like how much money that they're making per bundle, and just like that hard work and that labor around that. And it's just like these people every single day are just doing what they have to do. We can just live a more comfortable life. So I really shout out to them.
Yo, that's real. Yeah, man. Hey, shit ain't gonna be real in America until the food production lines get threatened, and then you're gonna realize that
We saw, and we all feared that for a little bit in the beginning of, in the top of the year, during when the pandemic first started, when there were some shortages. I remember we were even like freezing bread in my house just in case, and that brought a different reality of what actually.
and that also reminds me too of while we're talking about old sessions, the session we did with Jay, where he was talking about his experience, working in the factory, which isn't the same as farming, but I think like he talked a little bit about the automation that was going on there, and how you can have machines that technically can do it, but at the same time, like they present a whole degree of different challenges, where you really do need like that human element to it, especially with something like farming. Like you trace back human history, farming has been an integral part of what we do. So I think, the push in the modern age to sometimes industrialize these things, like yes, it can lead to more efficiency in some senses, but at the same time, without that human element, like you're missing something. So yeah, it's a good shout out.
How about you? Who's your Sunday shout out for?
I'm gonna shout out Aaron. Aaron, who was on one of our sessions. I had a nice conversation with him earlier this week, just chopping it up. I mentioned he popped into my mind earlier too, because we talked a lot about this idea of normality. He had a bar. I think it was normal is a moving target, or normal should be a moving target, and I think that really captures this idea, right, where it is like we have to be in a state of evolution and improvement, as opposed to just like this is the way that things are. He was just sort of
being constant too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was just sort of talking about his journey through COVID. I don't want to, go out here paraphrasing his experiences, but he's he definitely seems like he's been doing a lot of self-improvement. He broke down his journey with running. He's been getting really into running. The other day he ran like 9 miles and like casually, you know what I'm saying? So and it was dope because even beyond the physical part of things, like the conversation, we touched a lot about like that sort of mental thing of like compound every day, just building it up, and next thing you know, you're able to run that much. Also recently got engaged, so congratulations to him for that. So yeah, shouts out to Aaron. Great conversation. I think it goes to show too, like we always say, open invite for folks to hop on this platform and have these public conversations, but also obviously privately. Like we love to stay in touch with the community, know what people are doing, how their journeys are going. You know, like once you're part of the community, you're always part of the community. Once you're part of the family, you're always part of the family. So yeah, shouts out to Aaron.
Shouts to Aaron. Yeah, my number hasn't changed. I had the same number since 7th grade. So if you're looking for me, you know where to find me.
Some 8th grade homie's gonna be like, "Oh, word, all right."
Right? No, that's real. Yeah, no, shoutouts. No, this was beautiful. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, watching. We do this every single Sunday. Yeah.
Also, I was gonna say, we can maybe post a poll this week or something, but let us know how y'all are feeling about these times. I know originally we started 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Partially because I was sort of in limbo out here, we pushed that back an hour to 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm sort of in a space now where I'm down to for the 9 a.m.s on Sundays on the Pacific time. So, you know, definitely want to hear from the community on when it's good for y'all to tune into this. If you would prefer a little bit earlier in the day, that 9 a.m/noon, West Coast, East Coast, or if you're the 10 a.m., 1 p.m. is still working, so let us know.
Might throw late night Sunday vibes too. Late night Sunday vibes could be the thing as well.
That's true.
I'm down to adjust. You feel me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we'll be back every Sunday, but the timing might continue to shift around and whatnot.
No, that was beautiful. That was a good wrap up. Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's gonna be a good question to pose for everyone.
Hey, bro, let me just hit that real quick. Yo, real quick, it drives me crazy that this is reverse, man. Like I want, why do they do that? You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at the camera, man.
I know, but we know. We know.
What
see a question mark, exclamation point, even and when people are just typing, you free. So I think we did a great
front, back, and side to side.
Fendi facts. That's a fact.
Y'all enjoy your Sundays. Look out for another session this week, and we'll go from there.
All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you again.